Hello, everyone. This is Logan Hertz with Hazeltine LLC. We are continuing our interview series with financial professionals in the industry. And today we have Mr. Geoff Suval. Jeff's an EVP at Galt. He fixes cash flow and liquidity problems and eliminates personal guarantees. He does that by helping companies build real business credit on their EIN, keeping Social Security numbers out of it, and protecting personal FICO scores. And it should go without saying that they're using fairly unconventional strategies outside of the standard conventional banking system in order to serve their customers' needs. So, Jeff, great to have you on the program. How you doing?
Great to be here, Logan. Thanks for having me.
Sure, no problem, no problem. So I always like to start with why. Why do you do what you do, Jeff?
Well, I love what I do. And it's interesting. I kind of stumbled into it. I was doing business development for a very cool, kind of a one-stop shop for small and medium-sized businesses that started as a business management software company, but then kind of morphed into like everything else, merchant services, virtual employees, digital marketing, you name it. It's truly a one-stop shop. And I was doing business development for them, looking for another arrow for their quiver. And I stumbled upon Galt and started delving into it and was like, wait a minute, the stuff that they're talking about fixing is exactly what I personally experienced with my own small business and some of the pain that I experienced. So it really resonated with me. And then I happened to see that they were hiring. So I tossed my resume in, got through the algorithms, and the first interview was with the CEO, and that went well. And then it's funny, I was talking to the owner of that one-stop shop, and I was like, "Hey, man, I found this awesome thing that your clients are going to really, really love." He's like, "Oh, yeah, tell me about it." So I did. And he's like, "I didn't know that was even possible." I'm like, "Neither did I." And he's like, that's something that literally all of our clients can benefit from. And they have like 6,000 small business clients. And so I was like, I know. And I said, I also applied. And he's like, oh man. But at the end of the day, he just cares that what I'm doing is good for me. And we still continue to do a lot of work together because he's one of my top affiliates. So I found it because it sounded awesome. It resonated with me in my personal experience. And that's how I found it. And I love it.
So tell me a little bit about the history of Galt and what Galt does or used to.
Okay. All right. So JGalt, we are at our core, we're a software company. We're a SaaS company with over a 14-year history and over 43,000 members. However, we've only operated under the JGalt name for a little over 2 years, about 2.5 years. And there's a reason for that. Our CEO, who's a force of nature, very successful in multiple businesses, but he had a very personal reason for finding what is now Galt, buying it and sort of rebranding it and changing the delivery model. But two of his closest lifelong childhood friends had very successful small businesses, both down in Texas. One was a commercial roofing company. The other was an electrical contractor, but with between like 30 and 40 trucks on the road. So it was like a big little business. But those were successful businesses, Logan, that, were profitable and successful. But then the fortunes turned and they didn't adapt. And then like all the bad things happened, meaning the businesses went bankrupt, leading to personal bankruptcy in both cases, divorce, I think in both cases. But then the electrical contractor actually committed suicide. And when he did, our CEO, Cole, was personally impacted. This is one of his oldest friends. And he just took a step back at that moment and just kind of thought about the way that it is. And the way that it is that nearly 9 out of 10 small businesses fail. And when that happens, bad things happen. Suicide's obviously an extreme example, but personal bankruptcy is not uncommon at all. So he went looking for a solution to this problem because these small business owners are the backbone of our country. I mean, this is sort of the people that have the courage to step out and offer a better product or a service, or to try to offer a better life to their family, this is what our country is built on. And so he, when looking for a solution, found what is now Galt, bought it, rebranded it, and took it from what had been a very self-service software program that you can acquire and then work yourself through the steps, took it from that to what is very white glove consultative. We now pull our members through this very intentional 7-step process, which I'm happy to share with you, that we also guarantee will work literally every time. And we have a performance guarantee and money back and whatever if we can't do it. And we've never had to pay on that because it works.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah. So I'm guessing you're not using Wells Fargo or JP Morgan Chase?
No, it's funny. I bank with Wells Fargo, and going back to my personal story that I was telling you about, I had a successful small business, and I had a platinum business card with Wells Fargo, right, and a business line of credit. And the more that I used either of those things, the lower my FICO score was going. And I was like, wait a minute. This is supposed to be business. Why is it destroying my personal credit? Well, it's because there's business credit and there's real business credit. And until you get to be really big with like the Wells Fargos and the Chases and the BOAs, your business credit's still going to be tied to you personally, right? So no, we don't really work with those.
Geoff, surely you're not suggesting that there's not a level playing field. Surely you're not suggesting that the big boys have advantages that us little guys don't get. I mean, come on.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's funny. That's exactly what we've done. So the rules are different for those guys, right? The big boys. And, what we've been able to figure out how to do is to bring, those same benefits enjoyed by those big guys, sometimes unfairly, down market to Main Street. That's what we do, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So that's a great segue. Why don't you show
okay.
us your process and how you do it?
Let me pull this up. So maybe I'll begin by showing just a couple of real quick. Let's do this, and then we are going to make this a slideshow. Okay.
Love the logo too. It's a great
Yeah.
logo.
Yes. So we can go back to that. It's we like it too. All right. So here's actual real member journey. This is actually a trucking company, one of our members down in Texas, small trucking company, about $1.5 million in top line revenue. And Christine's her name. She came to us and she had access to tons of business credit, kind of like I had access to business credit, right? Still attached to her, but she only had access to about $1,000 of real corporate credit, which is unattached to her. Okay. Because we build real business credit that allows business owners to separate and keep separate their personal credit from their business credit and get access to the money that they need for their business at better rates and better terms without having to give personal guarantees. And that's the key. And so she came to us with only about $1,000 of access to that unattached real corporate credit. But after working with us, after a few months, she had access to $6,900, then $15,600, then $65,600, and then ultimately in just 10 months' time, she had access to nearly $750,000 in real unattached to her corporate credit. No personal collateral, no impact at all on her personal credit, right? So people are like, well, how are you able to do this? And how are you able to do it so quickly? I don't want you to think that 10 months is the norm. This is a very capital intensive business with a lot of expenses that you pay for using cards, trade cards, store cards, credit cards that report to the business credit bureaus. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But here are two other actual clients. This is a small client, $2.5 million in sales up in Michigan, legitimate company, had access to less than $11,000 in real unattached corporate credit because, the conventional banks will be looking at your revenues and your P&L statements, and they want to see 2 or 3 years of financials, and they're going to then come up with a recommended credit limit. In this case, it was less than $11,000. The same owner, Logan, of this company owns this smaller company, also up in Michigan, $400,000 in sales. But this business had access to nearly 60% of its revenues in actual corporate credit unattached to this business owner. Like, well, how is that even possible? Well, in this case, it was dumb luck. This company happened to buy supplies and materials that it needed for its business from lenders and vendors and issuers of credit that report to the business credit bureaus. And this is where things get interesting. Only 7%, Logan, only 7% of all of these lenders and vendors and issuers of credit, so trade cards, store cards, banks, private lenders, only 7% of them report to the business credit bureaus. And with so few reporting, it's hard to actually build real business credit. So remember, I told you that we're a SaaS company, we're a software company. Well, we have hundreds and hundreds of financial companies, lenders and vendors, issuers of credit on our platform. And to get on our platform, those companies have to give us two critical pieces of information. Number one, they got to tell us what their approval criteria is in writing. And number two, they have to tell us which business credit bureau or bureaus they report to. And with that information, it allows us to very successfully build our members' business credit bureau or profile, on each of those three major business credit bureaus pretty rapidly. And I'll show you all the steps in a moment. So the fact is most companies that go to conventional banks that look at revenues and P&Ls and will then make a recommended limit, they're sort of going to be subject to whatever those rules are. The companies on our platform, and we have hundreds of them, they're willing to underwrite using different criteria. And that criteria, Logan, is demonstrated ability to pay as reflected on the business credit bureaus. So these are the actual steps. It always begins in every case, regardless of the size of the company, how long they've been around for, the revenues, the industry. It always begins with step one, which is essentially establishing the company's fundable foundation, making sure that they look more attractive in the eyes of the business credit world. We essentially give them a makeover, for lack of a better word. In the real estate world, it would be we're staging the house before we list it on the market, right? So there's usually a lot of cleanup that has to be done, because if a business has any sort of history, there could be a lot of inconsistent information out there, like old addresses that are still showing up because maybe you updated it with your bank, but not with the Secretary of State. Maybe you applied for credit or a loan using the corporation's name, but the DBA's name some other time. Maybe you used LLC one time, but not another time. All of these things that create different business credit files cause inconsistencies, and inconsistencies trigger fraud concerns, which almost inevitably leads to a declination of the credit or capital that's being applied for. So there's a lot of cleanup that has to be done. And then remember, I told you that all of these hundreds of companies on our platform have to give us their approval criteria. Well, with that information, we know exactly what they're looking for to approve corporate credit or to issue a loan, right? Because we have the approval criteria in writing. So we know what boxes need to be checked. So we check those boxes, and some of them are kind of silly. But for instance, did you know that most issuers of business credit require that your business phone number be listed on the National 411 registry? It's like, who even knew that was a thing? 411, I mean, that's old school. Well, it's a requirement. You also need to have a real business email address. They don't like yahoo.com or gmail.com or outlook.com or, heaven forbid, AOL.com. Like, you got to have a real corporate email address, right? For credibility purposes, a business website, or at least a landing page. These are boxes that have to be checked. Once we've done that, we've cleaned everything up, we've given you that makeover, we then properly register that cleaned up makeover entity with the three major business credit bureaus listed here: Dun & Bradstreet, Experian Business, and Equifax Business. And once we've properly registered them, then we begin building the business credit with tier 1 vendors. There are 4 different vendor tiers, but it always begins with tier 1. Tier 1 vendors, we call these our ringer accounts. These are usually trade lines that are net accounts that are going to issue just a little bit of credit. But again, these are guaranteed approval. So they're going to issue just a little bit of credit that our members will then use to buy things that they need for their business. So you'll choose the ones that are applicable to your business, and you'll pay those bills timely, ideally even a little bit early, 7 days early. Okay. And once you're paying this newly available credit timely, and they report your timely payments, we sign you up for business credit monitoring. So just like personal credit monitoring, you need it because sometimes things can show up on your business credit report that aren't accurate or that don't belong to you. So we need to be able to catch it and help you clean it up, get it off if it's not yours, right? But after a couple months of paying those tier 1 vendors timely, you graduate to tier 2 vendors. Now we're talking slightly extended amount. $5,000, $7,500, rinse and repeat. You pay those bills timely and they report. And then you graduate those time, or you then graduate to tier 3. Tier 3, now we're talking more usable amounts of credit. Visa, MasterCard, Amex, some revolving, but larger amounts, more usable amounts of credit. Pay those bills timely and they report, and then you graduate to tier 4. Tier 4, Logan, that's where the magic happens. Business credit score of 80 and above, that's where that separation of your personal finances and your business finances actually happens. And where all these other types of financing, true business lines of credit that don't require personal guarantees, non-recourse business lines of credit, real estate financing, purchase order financing, accounts, whatever the banks on our platform make available to you based on your demonstrated ability to pay that we've helped you demonstrate. Because again, we know who reports and where they report, and we make sure that our members are working with those companies that are reporting their timely payments so that they become more credit worthy and credible and get access to what they need rapidly, much more rapidly than you could ever do it personally. So that's it. That's how we do it.
Excellent. That was great. A great presentation to see your full process. So when a client goes through that full process, what are not just the benefits of, okay, then now they have access to credit, but as a business, how does this help them grow their business? How does it help them actually be successful? Does it translate into additional revenue? Does it translate into lower costs? Like, how does that work?
Well, all of the above. A strong business credit profile, well, there's many, many benefits. Well, first of all, if you have a strong business credit profile and you get access to, non-recourse business lines of credit, that's access to working capital, right? Money that you need when you need it. That certainly helps with growing your business or scaling, or even just weathering a storm. And candidly, some people think that we're in a bit of a storm right now. So having access to what you need when you need it is critical. But there's other ancillary benefits too. Think about it. If you are a business that has access to large amounts of credit that is not attached to any of the owners, but you're looking to exit or sell, does that make your business more valuable if the buyer now has access to that because that is attached to the EIN and not to the owner or any of the officers? 100%. So I have buddies that are in private equity and venture, and they use me to build business credit, the business credit profiles of their portfolio companies, because it makes for a more successful exit. It's access to more money that's non-dilutive, right? And so it just makes the business more valuable. But when you apply for automobile insurance as an individual driver, they're pulling your credit. And if you have good credit, your rates are better. It's the same thing in the business world. So if you're buying fleets of vehicles and your business owns them, you have a strong business credit profile, your insurance rates are more attractive workers' comp rates, better terms from your suppliers and other business partners, because again, you've demonstrated your credit worthiness. So it helps in a lot of other ways, not just access to the money that you need. Yes, it allows you to save money on some of the other things you're already doing for your business.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks so much for that presentation, Geoff. What would you like to leave our audience with in terms of closing thoughts?
Look, if you are a business owner or know of a business owner that has any concerns about that very close connection between your business finances and your personal finances, just know that there's a way that you can separate those two, and you don't have to be one of the really big ones, right? We can go from startup all the way up to our largest members, 9-figure annual revenue, right? But that's big. I'd say anything from 500,000 to 25 million in annual revenues. That's our sweet spot. Again, we go lower and we go higher, but there is a solution that will reduce the risk that just being in business exposes you, your family, and all of your assets to. So please feel free to reach out, and I can make sure that Logan, you have my contact information so it can be posted. But I welcome the opportunity to talk to anybody. If you're a business owner and you want to see what your business credit profile looks like, I can pull that report for you just so you can see where you'd be starting from. And it has no impact on your personal or your business credit. It's just a good jumping off point so we can see what exists out there about you as a starting point.
Excellent. That's okay. Yeah, we will certainly include ways to get in touch with Geoff and content that he's posted in the description below. Everyone, this has been Geoff Suval of Galt. Geoff, thank you so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
It's my great pleasure, Logan. Thank you for having me. Anything I can do.